Sequels. We all rush to spend money on them and 90% of the time come back disappointed. Yet somehow we never learn. And when they continue to rank among the highest grossing of all time, the suits never have a reason to stop pumping them out. However, every now and then comes that magical sequel that actually feels worth it. But how is that done? Well, it's a tricky game. A sequel to a popular movie can be an almost guaranteed moneymaker, so it might be shit out regardless of how much the original creatively warrants it. Once a character's arc is complete, it may feel forced or inorganic to keep the story going. An example? Well, how about Cars 2? Despite the first Cars being one of Pixar's weaker films, Lightning McQueen has a pretty clear arc. Big Shot only cares about glory, doesn't respect the peons, but after being forced to work in a small town, he learns the value of character over fame. Not bad, but where do you go from there? The story is over. That's why in Cars 2 we get a weird espionage meets Fast and Furious plot that in no way needed to feature these characters. Now let's compare that to, say, Shrek 2. Shrek got the girl and lives happily ever after, but what now? Fiona's a princess after all. Doesn't that imply there's a king and a queen? What's gonna happen when they find out? Won't Shrek feel out of place in royalty? These are questions that may come to mind after watching the first Shrek, which made the sequel feel like a necessary continuation. There was creative warrant for the narrative to continue, whereas Cars 2 feels forced. Now, a weird plotline isn't the only way to go in a dead end. Some sequels decide to just basically make the first movie over again. There's nothing wrong with alluding to your predecessor, but there's limits. Movies like The Hangover Part 2 simply add a new location, swap some characters, and follow the exact same formula as the first one. Oh no, our friend's lost. Let's have some crazy adventures before we realize he was right under our noses. Except this time, we're in Bangkok. And instead of getting married to a hooker, Stu gets a tattoo. Ooh. Yeah, switching out the keywords doesn't make a story fresh. Imagine if in the second Harry Potter they were like, oh no, the Warlock's rock is missing and we think this mean professor took it. But it turned out it was a different teacher. And we had to pass a 5-headed dog and play life-size Monopoly to get through. So different and more dangerous. Doesn't feel creative, does it? Just repetitive and stale. If people wanted to see the first movie again, they'd just see the first one again. Now, some movies are aware of this mistake, and they seem so afraid that they try way too hard to avoid making it. This leads to another common problem, making the sequel too big or convoluted. Many seem to believe that a sequel needs to be grander, the stakes bigger, the plot's more complicated, and while that's all well and good, some movies take it way too far. Perfect example? Spider-Man 3. Dance numbers aside, this movie's a prime instance of too much going on. While the other two Maguire films had one villain at a time, this one stuffed in not 2, but 3. This made it impossible to really develop any of them. When there's too many plot lines, it's hard for audiences to care about any of them individually. Let's go back to Shrek again. The first two had fairly straightforward plots that were easy to get into, but the third had way too much going on. You had Shrek becoming a dad, trying to convince Artie to take the throne, Prince Charming taking over the kingdom, the whole Princess Rebellion thing. There's just so many plot points in too little time. It made the film an overstuffed mess. That kind of oversaturation is often to the detriment of a movie's heart and soul. What other things bring sequels to shit? Comment the examples you can think of. Thanks for watching, make sure to like and be my sub. As always, extra thank you to my top tier patrons, Stephen Walk and Katie King.